Hello everyone, this is Aaron. This is the second video I'm doing in a series dealing with the authority that men and women who present the word of God to the people, the authority that they are under, and it's of course the authority of God. We cannot present anything in our own authority because we're not doing this for our own glory. It is for the glory of God. So in the first video, I dealt with how even Jesus Christ himself declared that he is not coming in his own authority. The words he presents are the words that he hears from the Father. So if he gives that example, we must follow the same model. Because one thing that's clear, I'm a preacher, and I'm sure every preacher out there should know that when God calls us to preach, he gives us a message that we must declare to the people, and that is the only thing that we should be saying to the people. We can't infuse in our own words because we want to get some response from the people. So in this video, I'm just going to deal with a little bit more as we go further into this thing about the authority with which we must come under when we're presenting the word of God. But I'm going to start right here in Matthew chapter 4. I'm going to look at chapter 4, verse 4, and here's what it says. But he answered and said, "It is written, man shall not live by bread alone, but by every word that proceeds from the mouth of God." This is Christ speaking, and what does Christ say? That we shall not live by bread alone, but by every word that proceeds from the mouth of God. And this is what we have, the word of God. That's how we should live. We can't live by the words of man, but we live by the words of God. This is Jesus Christ himself who declares that. Let me travel over to Matthew chapter 10. Come on with me. Matthew chapter 10. This is when Jesus sends out the 12, and he gives them some instructions. And in verse number 7, here's what Matthew 10 says. Well, I'm sorry, verse 5. Here's what it says. These 12 Jesus sent out and commanded them, saying, stop right there. He sent the 12 out and he commanded them, saying, and the rest of the chapter is pretty much what Jesus is telling them to do. Go to verse 7 and here's what it says. And as you go, preach, saying, the kingdom of heaven is at hand. So one of the first things he says is, when you go, this is what you ought to say. He tells them, this is what you ought to say. The kingdom of heaven is at hand. When you preach, preach saying this. He doesn't say, go and just say whatever you think is a good thing to say. Go and say this. That's what he declared. And then we go over to verse number 40, still in Matthew chapter 10, verse 40. He who receives you receives me, and he who receives me receives him who sent me. So I'm sending you out. This is the message that you are to declare. If they receive you, of course they're going to receive your message, but your message is not from you. Your message is from me. But hold up. It's not from me, because in the first video, if you saw it, if you didn't go back and see it, Jesus said, everything that I say, I hear from the Father, and I speak his word. So if you receive me, Christ, you're receiving the one who sent me, because he, the Father, gave the words to Christ, who gave the words to us, to give the words to you. And so you see that line right there. We can't break that line by infusing in what we want to say, because we want to draw some response from the people. Let's go over now to John chapter 5. Let's go over to John chapter 5. Let's look at what Jesus is saying there. John chapter 5, verse number 43 says this. I have come in my Father's name, and you do not receive me. If another comes in his own name, him you will receive. Christ made it very clear. There are people out there who are coming in their own name with their own message and their own word. And as I said before, there are some, they will come and they will present words as for their own glory. But Jesus is not doing this for his own glory. But those who come with their own words, they're going to receive their own glory. Those are the people you readily receive because you like their message. Remember what Paul told Timothy, that a time will come when men will not endure sound doctrine, but will heap to themselves teachers who will tell them what their itching ears want to hear. Same context. But let's back up now to verse number 30 in John chapter 5 and see what it says. It says, I can of myself do nothing. As I hear, I judge, and my judgment is righteous, because I do not seek my own will, but the will of the Father who sent me. Christ said, I am not here for me. I am here for the one who sent me. Who sent him? The Father. It is his will that I am seeking to do. And of course, part of that will is present the words that the Father gave Christ and keep that line going. But what happens sometimes is, because preachers are, they're so eager to get a response from the crowd, they sometimes get a little beside themselves, and it's like this. It's like, I just got to say this. They got to step to the side off the box and present something that, they concluded themselves. Whether it's true or not, they step out of the spirit, so to say, and into the flesh because they just had to say it. And of course, people respond, and so they might keep saying it. But as you see that all of a sudden it's not the words of the Father, but it's the words of the speaker, and it's for the glory of the speaker and not the glory of the Father. One more and then I'll be done. Let's go back to Luke chapter 8. Remember the parable of the sower? The sower goes out and sows seeds. We all know that. We're familiar with that. But let me just look at a couple of things and then I'll be done with this one today. Luke chapter 8 verse 11 says this. Now the parable is this. The seed is the word of God. When the preachers and teachers are presenting, they are to present the word of God. That is the seed. We cannot throw in any manufactured seeds that were made in our own homes and our own minds and blend them and mix them in with the seeds that the Father has given us. And of course, what the seed is the word of God that he has given us. And one thing that the sower knows is this. He knows that all of the seed will not germinate and produce. Because if you go back and check the record, there are 4 types of soil, 4 types of ground that the seed fell on. Some fell on fertile ground, some fell on ground that might produce, but it won't last long, and some fell on just the hard ground, and nothing's going to happen. The sower knows that. So we as ministers, preachers, teachers of the Word of God must also be aware of the fact that when we are presenting the Word of God, there are 4 types of ground out there that are going to receive this Word. There are some that just won't get it. But then there are some that will, and they will produce that harvest. So it's not up to us to get the growth. It's up to us to just sow. Leave the rest up to God. And we have to be okay with that, not wanting a response from the people. We might not ever see the produce or the product of what we've sown. But so long as we sow the seed, which is the word of God, then all should be well with us and God. Well, that's all I have for you for now. Watch out for my next one. I'll go a little further into this thing and then wrap this thing up. But until then, as always, thanks for listening. Let's get right, church.